Welcome to the Hotel Buy, brought to you by Beechwood Real Estate Advisors.
Explore the world of Canadian hotel investment with us. Learn about success strategies, discover how to overcome challenges, and hear from industry experts.
Whether you're a seasoned investor or a curious listener, the Hotel Buy is your ultimate guide to the latest trends, strategies, and stories shaping the landscape of hotel investments.
Now let's start the conversation.
Hello, I'm Sylvia.
And I'm Jennifer. Welcome to the Hotel Buy.
We're really excited to have our guest on today. Minaz Rahemtulla is the Executive Chair and Managing Director of LHM Canada. With over 30 years of experience, Minaz is the go-to source in the hospitality industry. He brings an extraordinary level of deal structuring expertise, from viability to financing to partner sourcing. He has participated in many property acquisitions in many markets around the globe. He spearheads the LHM team, focusing specifically on due diligence, brand selection, negotiation, financing, and strategic planning. Minaz is also the current co-chair of the Jubilee Hospitality Association Canada and also the incoming chair of the IHG Canada Committee for 2024. So welcome, Minaz.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Hi, Sylvia, Jennifer.
Hello.
Go-to source is a bit flattering.
It's definitely warranted. We're really thankful that you've agreed to join us today, and we're really excited.
Great, let's get going.
Yeah, we feel lucky to talk to you. I'm excited for the conversation. So just right off the hop, how have the hotels that you have in your portfolio been operating this year? What have you been seeing?
This year, it's a little bit more challenging than the previous year. Coming out of COVID, there was a lot of pent-up travel demand. The Ontario government, we're more Ontario-centric with the hotels that we manage. The Ontario government had given incentives for people to travel within Ontario. Coming out of COVID, people weren't traveling internationally or weren't able to travel internationally as much. And this year we're seeing more international travel and less local travel. So as a result, while last year we saw a lot of demand in the near north markets and Northern Ontario, Muskoka, up in Sudbury, Thunder Bay, this year we're seeing closer to Toronto as the airport heats up, and we're seeing a lot of demand around the airport, especially through the summer. And that's focused mostly generated from international travel and people being able to travel outside Canada.
Excellent. That's interesting to hear, and wonderful to hear. To be honest, it was definitely one of the concerns through COVID is just the lack of international groups coming through and international travel. So to hear that that's really kind of come in and helped fill in where maybe some of the other areas of demand have maybe fallen away is really good to know. Minaz, just sort of following up on that, in terms of, so it sounds like demand has really stabilized, certainly in specific markets. What about in terms of costs? I know that has been an issue, certainly a concern for a lot of operators around the country. Where are you seeing opportunities potentially, or maybe concerns in terms of costs and the expenses?
Well, obviously coming out of COVID, we had a significant rise in costs. A lot of that was generated from the lack of labor. We had hotels that we could not rent rooms because we couldn't clean them. And so as a result, that sort of gave you a smaller supply, and we were able to mitigate that with increasing rates. However, those costs continued to keep going up. Supply chain was also an issue. There were lots of times, even through this year, that we can't get amenities, at the amenities that the brand requires for us to put in hotels. We we're still having challenges with labor, although not as much as last year. And as you're aware, Ontario increased minimum wage a couple of times since coming out of COVID. And so those costs have continued to rise. We're still experiencing cost challenges. The room to increase rates has diminished. We're, I think, at the top of the market, and people now looking down as far as rates are concerned. And so the ability to generate a profit is getting much more difficult this year than it was last year. And we're seeing challenging times ahead. A lot of it also to do with the fact that interest rates have almost doubled since pre-COVID.
Yes, that's definitely a concern. I mean, we're speaking to groups on a daily basis, and financing comes up in every single conversation. So just to finish the thought around operating statements and just how the hotels are performing, what is that first number that you look at when you're reviewing a P&L? Is there something that you sort of laser focused on right away?
Yeah, I do. We run mostly focused service hotels, and as a result, my eye normally goes to our rooms division cost, and then down to the GOP. And those are the two numbers I look at when I look at a monthly P&L. Obviously, it also depends on the particular hotel and the individual hotel. There are legacy costs that we really can't do anything about and try to manage through. But it's really generating that profit from the rooms division when it's a focused service hotel, and bringing that down to the bottom line.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about the P&L, but I'm curious, how are groups today raising equity? What are you seeing right now?
Well, interestingly enough, just coming out of COVID and into this year, there were quite a few transactions. The transactions have become a bit more challenging now. We sold a hotel just coming out of COVID and had to carry the full financing load on that. Partly because valuations were difficult to forecast. Banks still had not gotten to where they were comfortable with the loan to value. Owners obviously wanted the highest price possible, and trying to reconcile those three approaches was very difficult. And so as a result, we've found that there is a need, if you are selling today, to consider either providing the full first mortgage in the cases where your unit price far surpasses market expectations, or coming in with some sort of mezzanine, or the owner holding a second. And then the balance of the capital generally is owner-provided funds. We're finding, a lot of limited partnerships, general partnership with limited partners on there, and structures like that currently in the market.
Yeah, it's really helpful. Super helpful, actually. It leads into my next question. So, do you think investor expectations have changed over the last year just because of all of these changes with lending, loan to value ratio changes, and what have you?
At least at the moment, the investor expectations are that we should be able to make some money running these,
Yes.
these assets. When if you look at, and I speak from a view of my projects, we've had three. We're currently under construction with one more, but we've had three construction projects that transcended through COVID. All of those were underwritten with interest rate expectations around 4%. And all of those are now running with actual interest rate for our loans at between 7 and 8%. And so as a result, the expectation we had going into these projects is markedly different than it is now. So currently, we're certainly focused that if we can keep our head above water and provide just the ability to meet debt service covenant, that's a win in this market. Looking forward, and traditionally, most hotel investors look at least generating a 10% return on their money.
Yeah, absolutely. That is an enormous difference from the underwriting stage to the change in lending environment. So I appreciate the
Especially when you
answer.
have no control.
Mhm.
So Minaz, just following up on that, would you say then investors are looking at a longer term horizon? So if things have changed, expectations are, they still want a return on their money. Are they willing to sort of hold it for a little longer in order to see that return, or is it, lick your wounds and move on to the next?
Well, so interesting enough, there is a little bit of that lick your wounds and move on to the rest. But for the most part, I think the investor coming into Canada, the profile has changed somewhat from 5 years ago or more. We see a lot more Asian investors in the market, and traditionally the Asian investors are used to a longer time horizon, coming from countries that real returns were a lot lower than they are here, or the expectation of a real return, and the ability and the familiarity to hold assets for a longer term is much more prevalent with the Asian investor than it is with the investors that we had in Canada prior to sort of the 2015 range. So as a result, you are seeing a lot of patience in the market. I'm hearing some deals that are going to happen in towards the end of this year, early next year, at numbers that are still steady, if not surpass numbers in 2022 and 2023. So there's obviously demand. I think people are more willing to be patient. However, having said that, the lenders are also requiring the investors to make sure that they have professional management, that they have backing from the brand, that the brand selection is one of the mainstream brands before they actually look at lending money if you aren't in the range of more than 40% down. So it's important to have the whole package when you go to the lender. Otherwise, it makes it very difficult to underwrite and finance the acquisition.
That's a really, really important point, and I think viewers and listeners will appreciate that sort of piece of advice. Having the management team, having a brand, that's all still paramount to getting these deals across the finish line. So that's it, and thank you for the whole piece about just sort of the profile of investor sort of changing in more recent years. It's piggybacking on that. In some of the deals that you've experienced or that you're part of, maybe more recently, are you seeing the structuring of those like how are they structuring these deals? Is it singular entities or groups? Is it GPLP? Are you seeing a variety? Just curious on what you're seeing out there.
For the most part, today I'm seeing more of a GPLP or groups coming together, raising capital or using the capital and putting it in a group format, and then having one lead partner, very much the GPLP structure. And a lot of that's born from the fact that asset prices are still steady and high, and debt is still conservative, sitting at close to 60% loan to value. If you are an existing player in the market, you may be able to push that to 65. And so looking at asset prices when you're considering focused service hotels priced at north of 230 to 250,000 a unit, that gap is significant in terms of the actual equity that you have to put into to close the deal. And as a result, you're seeing a lot of groups coming together and putting their resources together in order to be able to complete the acquisition. So while in the past you saw a lot of individual investors that were able to close a deal because it was much easier at unit prices under 200,000 a unit or in the 150 to 200 range. Today, when you're seeing prices that are surpassing 250 a range, unless you're an existing investor in the market that can leverage your other assets that you had bought in the past at much more favorable unit prices, and you have equity to draw from that and cross collateralize, it's very difficult to be able to do a deal on your own.
Mm-hmm. And is there still, so you've got your partners, there's a lender at the table, sometimes there's still a gap. So where are groups finding that ability to sort of fill the capital stack in, whether it's mezdat or are you finding that there's options out there?
There are options out there. There are options out there, but there are very expensive options. Prime where it is, and you've got generally a lender offering you long-term debt, between this 6.5% to 8% range, depending on who you are. The mezzanine type financing generally is north of 9.5%, and there are a lot of hotel investors that were fortunate and sold their assets in the last 2 or 3 years that are willing to provide short-term financing on a mezz basis. They have a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines, waiting for, waiting for prices to drop. And along with that, there are private houses that will also give you mezz capital. People like Ambrose. There are a lot of private equity houses out there that are willing to take a chance, as long as the underwriting makes sense, and as long as the sponsor is someone that either has the experience in the marketplace, has other assets, or is willing to bring together a team that the lender is comfortable with.
Okay. No, that's really, really good to know. And I think that there's a lot of groups looking for opportunities out there, but it's the structuring of those deals and being able to sort of fill the capital stack up, and where things becomes a little bit challenging. So that's great insight. Thank you.
But when you look at it, everything is relative, right? At the end of the day, if I want an above market price as an owner of an existing asset, and I've got a willing buyer that's at the table, in order to be able to make sure you structure that deal, it has to be a win-win situation. And a win in the existing owner's case is to try and leverage that unit price as high as possible. A win from the group that's acquiring it is to be able to structure it at a level so that they're able to make ends meet and meet their investor expectations. And quite often, that now requires an out of the box solution, and that could be that the existing owner will have to carry that first mortgage financing at a level that generally a mainstream lender would not accommodate, and then bring in some private equity in terms of private money, a little bit more expensive, and the whole thing be interest only, so that the deal can be made. There are not a lot like that, but it just all depends on the price that you're asking for and how you want to structure the deal.
Yeah. Minaz, you're hired. You're the you're the new team member at Beechwood. You're doing our job for us.
You've got people on your side.
You've talked about a lot of creative solutions, so you've given me a lot to think about and take away. Thank you for sharing all of those insights. It's great. I'm curious, what projects are you working on right now that you're the most excited about?
Well, I've had 4 years of of total stress from 2020. It's going on to almost the fourth year, 3 years through COVID. So I don't know if I actually want to see another shovel at this point in time. It's been a difficult ride. However, we are completing the Staybridge Suites at Toronto Airport on behalf of an owner that has an existing Holiday Inn at the site. Mixed-use project. It's the first time I've got involved in a mixed-use project and going to open a great Staybridge with a lot of commercial space, office condos, underground parking. And so I'm very excited at launching that product in the Toronto Airport marketplace, and I think it'll do very well. Luckily, but in this particular case, I'm not footing the equity bill, so it's not as stressful as it ordinarily would be, but the investor expectation and the owner expectations are there, and so we have to make sure that it is launched successfully. But that's the most exciting project that I'm looking at right now.
It sounds exciting. I can't wait to see it.
It's a beautiful building, all glass. It's going to be great, and it represents the newest generation of the Staybridge product in the marketplace.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure IHG is going to be happy for that as well. I know you opened the Holiday Inn Express Toronto Airport not too long ago, and you know a lot of that was done through COVID. Hence your reluctance to put another shovel in the ground. But just curious, was there a lot of lessons that you're able to carry forward through that process, and maybe even through the development at Staybridge?
Both projects started through COVID. So even the Staybridge project was started through COVID. In the case of the Express at the airport, you've already broken ground. I'd like to say, when you're pregnant, you have to deliver. And so we had to complete the project. I had never been through a time like the time that we went through COVID, not through, and I've been through a lot of different challenges in Canada, everything from the Lehman meltdown in the US through SARS, 9/11, every challenge you can think of that we've had in the last 25 years. This was very different. And looking back, certainly the lessons that I would have learned is one, and fortunately you have to be extremely well capitalized because the delays can compound, interest rates keep going up, your cost of construction continue to go up. And as you're aware, when you're doing a construction project, the lender is extremely reluctant to give you any money until you're able to put in the equity piece on every draw, no matter what the increase is. And since through this period, valuations were very mushy, it was difficult to convince the lender to bring more money to the table. And as a result, that equity piece continued to go up, and therefore being extremely well capitalized is critical. Along with that, when you go into these projects, you're putting those bids out, negotiating as hard as you can. It's extremely important looking back now to make sure that your contracts are airtight, and so the amount of increases that are coming in terms of extras from the different trades are manageable. Obviously there are some extras that are valid extras, but you want to make sure that unless you've stopped the project and then restarted it, in which case the trades have the ability to push the price and reprice. If you're continuing to construct, you want to make sure that the contract is airtight. And along with that, the other thing we learned is not to compromise on the quality of the trades that are at the table. And by that I mean you want to pick trades that are big enough to be able to survive through the it's something like COVID. That was a critical piece to make sure that all the trades were large enough that they could survive. We had a couple of trades that went out of business through COVID, and then repricing those contracts after COVID, it just really increased our budget. And so it's important that when you're at the table, you don't pick the smallest trade or the best price. You pick the best company that has the resources to be able to partner with you through the whole project. And that's something that definitely we learned.
That is great advice for sure. Thank you. Well, Minaz, we've really appreciated all your time, and if you can spare one more minute, we're going to just do something fun. We have some rapid fire questions, and they're just meant to off the cuff, just nothing controversial, just some fun questions to get to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
All right, so Jenny's going to start off.
What is your favorite time of day?
My favorite time of day is when I visit my Starbucks in the morning.
Nice.
What did you have for breakfast?
Starbucks. That's it. That's my day is I start with the Starbucks in the morning, and then I totally forget to eat until I get home for dinner. So unless I have a lunch meeting, that's pretty much it.
City or beach vacation?
Golf.
Golf.
Okay. Define yourself in 3 words.
That's a little bit more challenging, but 3 words. Focused, relaxed, sort of tough to put those 2 together, and fun-loving. That's 4 words.
We'll hyphenate it and we'll let it count. Window or aisle seat?
Window. Used to be aisle, it's now window.
Where's one place?
Actually, I can expand that. It depends on the aircraft, and the reason being is I get cold when they fly, especially when it's the mercy of the flight attendants putting the temperature up or down. And depending on the type of aircraft, I'll sit in the aisle or window, depending on where the air vent is blowing from in the aisle. Some aircraft comes near the window, and some aircraft comes from the aisle. So I'll pick and choose.
Spoken like an avid traveler. Where's one place or destination on your bucket list?
I think a lot of destinations. Casa de Campo in the Dominican to play golf.
Nice.
Keith dog.
Nice. If you could have one superpower, would you rather have supersonic hearing or be invisible?
Can I get both? No. Supersonic hearing. No. Invisible. I'd say invisible.
I think I know this one, but dogs or cats?
Cats.
Oh, okay.
I know.
You got me there.
So Minaz, you've told us a lot today, but what we really want to know is, what is your deepest, darkest secret? Kidding. That's not the question.
I put it in golf terms. I could probably give you some.
What's one thing
further than what my partners think I can hit?
What's one thing you wish you knew at age 19?
One thing I wish I knew at age 19. How much fun the hospitality business was, and I would have started at 19 instead of 22.
Perfect way to end. Really appreciate your time, Minaz. Thank you so very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for inviting me to this podcast.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
To learn more about the Hotel Buy and Beechwood Real Estate Advisors, please visit beechwoodadvisory.com. That's BEECHWOOD advisory.com.